wait a minute. You can't go too far. Weren't they fabulous? Oh, come on, everybody stand up and give these wonderful people. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What an incredible group of musicians. This is our Matthews Concert Band, and I want to thank Dr. Don Morris. Raise your hand, Dr. Morris, there you are. And after last year, they were as excited to play as we were excited to hear them, so thank you very much for coming. You'll be hearing more of their music later in the program. My name is Mark Tofano. I'm commander of the Hooks-Orr American Legion Post 235 here in Matthews. And on behalf of our hundreds of members, I want to say welcome to this Memorial Day service, and thank you so much for coming. I've got a few housekeeping announcements to make first. A really important one, the bathrooms are behind this building. You'll see the signs that say public restroom, and they're open and ready for you. First of all, you're hearing me over an incredible PA system. And this is the first time, I think, an event like this has taken place in town that the sound is just absolutely awesome. And that's in part, matter of fact, in total, because of Live Events Media Group, who, by the way, donated their services and equipment for this event. So thank you very much. And when you came in, you should have received something that looks like this. It's a Memorial Day thank you to the vendors and businesses in town. There's some incredible discounts that are being given to veterans today, and this sheet will tell you all there is about it. Also, we have a young trumpeter. He's a 12-year-old. His name is Ben Mitchell, and he'll be doing the call to colors, but I wanted to make sure that he got a special calling because he turned out to be, at 12 years old, the 4th chair in the state of North Carolina band. Absolutely incredible talent. And also, I want to make sure that you know that don't leave the park after this ceremony is over, which is going to be an absolutely fabulous one, because there's going to be a short dedication ceremony afterwards for our new Matthews Veterans Memorial Park. First of all, I want to thank the town of Matthews for allowing our post to use the park today. And this ceremony is totally produced and funded solely by the American Legion. Although this appears to be an official town function, it is not. This ceremony was lovingly produced by veterans who wish to honor and remember their brothers and sisters in uniform who have perished in battle. It's an opportunity for the whole town to come together on this most important day to give tribute to those who gave their lives for us all. When you came to the park, you should have received one of these booklets. If you don't have one, you need to get one. And in here is everything there is to know about the American Legion and all of the members of our family, which is Sons of the Legion, American Legion Auxiliary, and so many things that we do. In there should have been a poppy. And if you have it, wear it. Put it on right now and wear it all day. And if you don't have one, go to one of these tents and they will give it to you. It's a way for the whole town to know that you are honoring your fallen members of your town. And it's just an incredible way to show your appreciation for veterans. So please put it on if you haven't already. There's a lot of great information in this booklet. The importance of honoring the prisoners of war and missing in action, the meaning and history of Memorial Day, the significance of the poppy, and an extensive look into the American Legion family of organizations and how the Legion serves veterans, the community, and our youth. There's a special section on, let me get there, on page 14 and 15 for those of you that have a booklet. This gives the history of the Matthews Veterans Memorial Park, and throughout the booklet, for those of you who are tech savvy, there's QR codes, so you just need to scan those real quickly, and it'll take you right to the spot in the website that deals with that. The reason this is particularly important is there is a subsection here called the process on page 15. And the reason that's there, because it'll take you directly to the moment in the video of the March 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Town Council, where history was made in the town of Matthews. This was the moment when the Matthews Veterans Memorial Park was established. It's important to you as a veteran and to all citizens of Matthews to listen to these few minutes of video and listen all the way to the vote. And you will hear firsthand how our mayor and each of our commissioners felt about establishing the Matthews Veterans Memorial Park. The American Legion was founded on 4 pillars: the Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation, the national security, Americanism, and really important to us, children and youth. And one of the most visible youth programs that we have is sitting right over here on the side. It's our fantastic junior league team. Come on, get up and hustle, get down here in the front. Now, this team manager, Mr. Steve Brooks, would you raise your hand, Steve? And one of our coaches is the post member. His name is Greg Smith, but unfortunately he wasn't here today because of an illness. Tonight, 7 o'clock at, I guess you call it Arthur Goodman Park, I refer to as Mara. Tonight at 7 o'clock is the season opening game. So everybody, please, please, please go to that game. It's going to be fabulous. This is an incredible young group of talented players, and you're not going to want to miss this. Cheer them on, root them on, and let's have a wonderful time tonight at Mara at 7 o'clock. So thank you, fellas. Now, we're also trying very hard, of course, with the COVID thing last year, it was really rough, but we're trying very hard to have a girls softball team, a young ladies softball team, and also a senior baseball team, but that'll probably take place next year. Another incredible opportunity for our youth, and a lot of people don't know this, how many of you in the audience are familiar with Boys State and Girls State and Boys Nation? Not that many. Okay, well, American Legion is responsible for sponsoring young men and women to what's called Boys State and Girls State. And in there, they actually go to the state capitol and they sit next to their congressmen and representatives, and they actually learn about government and actually take place in it. As a matter of fact, when I went to Boys State, we actually passed a bill in Florida that puts that white line on the right side of the highway. And so it's really an incredible experience. And then people from Boys State and Girls State go to Boys State and Girls State Nation, where they actually meet with their federal representatives. So it's an incredible opportunity for young people to get civically minded. Also in the book, and I'm not going to keep raising it up, you can do that, is there's an enormous opportunity for those that are gifted with wordsmithing and with speech, and that is the oratorical contest. And as long as it's a subject that deals with the U.S. Constitution, you can take part in that contest. Now, we just recently sponsored a young lady who went to the 4th place in the state, and we're hoping next year that she will return and even carry on a more successful run next time. Now, of course, none of these programs would happen without funding. So I saved that till last. And so right here at the back, is actually a way that not only you can join the American Legion, but also where you can contribute. By the way, that Veterans Memorial that you see back there was totally funded by donations from individuals and also from corporations. All of the building materials were donated from the likes of Lowe's and Home Depot and Site One, etc. And the donations, we had dozens and dozens of volunteers that were here to build that as well. But we need your help. So if you would be so kind to do that, I would certainly appreciate it. And also, by the way, while we're talking about donations, is the American Legion Auxiliary is totally funded by donations based on the poppies. They do an incredible job. They visit the VA hospitals and help those that are handicapped and also that are suffering from PTSD to help them through the process. And it's really important that they continue their program. So what I'd like to do before we go any further is I can introduce everybody that's on stage, and if you just hold your applause till the end. First of all, most important to us is this incredible group of men and women that we have that have served so honorably and that are members of our post. And they have been absolutely incredible. A number of them are out here, including myself, at 6 o'clock this morning, setting all this up. So they're tremendously devoted. We also have Police Chief Clark Pennington, and our Fire Chief, Rob Kinnenberg, is unable to be here today. And we have Doug Rose, who is the chairman of our Matthews Veterans Advisory Committee, which is an important government body made of civilians of both veterans and not, that help to guide the town in matters that are important to veterans. The original flagpole and the original area around the flagpole and that memorial wall in the back were put in almost 30 years ago by the Rotary Club. And we've been blessed to have Mike Ruscio and Barry Steiger of the Rotary Club here with us today. And did Adrienne come on today? No, she's not here. Oh, that's a pity. Adrienne Garson, who normally is a regular for us on stage, she's the publisher of the Matthews Midhill Weekly, actually the Charlotte Media Group. And for those that you get that paper, once a month you'll notice this wonderful half-page ad in there called Honoring Those Who Serve. And she's been giving us free space in her paper for 2 years now, and it's just been incredible. We also have a special relationship with the Masonic Lodge, which is this building right here. This is where we have some of our meetings, and all of the chairs that they're sitting on and the tables that are underneath the tents came from the Masonic Lodge. They've been an incredible partner for us, and it's just been wonderful to have them part of us. We also have James Estes, who's the Veterans Affairs staff member for Senator Tom Tillis. And of course, we have Mayor John Higdon and Commissioners Larry Whitley, Ken McCool, Dave Bland, John Urban, and Jeff Miller. And Mayor Pro Tem Renee Gardner was not able to be with us today. So thank you all for being with us here today. I just want to say something that later in the program, just toward the end of the program, you'll hear a series of names called out, and after each name there'll be a single tap of a bell. Those are the names that are on that wall in the back. There's 29 of them, and we make it a tradition every year to call them off. But we also, there'll be a slight pause after that, and we then will recite the names of American Legion members of our post who have passed away. That Rotary Club wall was originally put up by what was then the Rotary Club of Matthews and Midhill, and it honors all the men that were killed in action during World War I. So now if we can have our talented bugler come forward. If you'll all stand with me, we will actually start the Memorial Day ceremony. now we'll have a moment of prayer with our Pastor Wilson.
Let's pray together, please. On this Memorial Day, we come before the Creator of all humankind to remember those who bravely served our country, and as a result of their service, are now in all of eternity. Gracious God, we ask you for your blessing upon the souls of those good men and women who gave their last breath in defense of our nation, our freedom, and our children's future. And we also ask that you bless everyone gathered here today and grant us the strength to rise to the challenges of our time and meet them in full faith that you will always be with us. May we glorify you in all that we do, O God, today and every day. Amen.
Recover. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does the star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Retire the colors. Two.
As you look at the stage today, you may have noticed a special table. It is called the Missing Man Table. I would like to read from remarks made by President Ronald Reagan at a White House ceremony on July 20th, 1984. Too many times in our history, we have been forced painfully and reluctantly to send our men and women to fight in wars on foreign shores. Some of them made the supreme sacrifice of their lives. Some others made sacrifices in many ways equally grave. They were imprisoned by the enemy. Their incarcerations often included beatings and torture, starvation, and all forms of emotional and psychological abuse. It also entailed the terrible loneliness of living through lost years, of seeing the days tick away without friends, without loved ones, without family and community. What has sustained such men and women in their isolation? Returning prisoners have said there were 3 things that helped them survive captivity and return with honor: faith in God, faith in their fellow prisoners, and faith in their country. The tradition of setting a separate table of honor of our prisoners of war and missing comrades has been in place since the end of the Vietnam War. The manner in which this table is decorated is full of special symbols to help us remember our brothers and sisters in arms. The table is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his or her oppressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single rose in the vase signifies the blood they may have shed in sacrifice to ensure the freedom of our beloved United States of America. This rose also reminds us of the family and friends of our missing comrades who keep faith while awaiting their return. The red ribbon on the vase represents an unyielding determination for a proper accounting of our comrades who are not among us. A slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless fallen tears of families as they wait. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us at this time. The chair is empty. They are not here. The candle is reminiscent of the light of hope, which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors to the open arms of a grateful nation. The American flag reminds us that many of them may never return and have paid the supreme sacrifice to ensure our freedom.
Everyone should have gotten a poppy, and I just wanted to read a couple of things about why we have the poppy. At the end of World War I, the American Legion adopted the poppy as a symbol of freedom and a blood sacrificed by those of our troops in war times. The use of the poppy was symbolically comes from the poem of Flanders Fields, which movingly begins with "In Flanders Field." In Flanders fields, the poppies blow, between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders field. and that was by John McCrae in December of 1915.
Thank you, and you may be seated. A few weeks ago, a member of our post, Robert L. Williams, passed away. Robert married his lovely wife, Monica, late in life. And upon passing, Monica was going through his personal items and discovered a small box that she had not seen before. In the box was an assortment of ribbons and medals, and when the officers of our post learned of Robert's passing, they went to visit Monica. And it was during that visit that the box was given to them, in hopes they could determine what it all meant. Well, this is what they found. Robert served with the 2nd Cavalry Dragoons, Stryker Infantry, and Cavalry Regiment. He was an instructor at West Point. He was awarded the Army Commendation Medal, the Vietnam Gallantry Cross, the National Defense Service Medal. He had served 3 tours in Vietnam and was awarded the Bronze Star for valor in combat. Monica did not know any of this. Why? It was because when Robert returned from battle, he returned to an ungrateful nation. It was a time when soldiers were spit upon, jeered, and disrespected. We have many veterans of that era that live among us in Matthews. Some are the forgotten soldiers of the Korean conflict, others from Vietnam, and still others from the endless Gulf Wars and War on Terror. None of whom have experienced the clear-cut victory of World War II and the hero's welcome that those soldiers were given. It wasn't until recently here in Matthews that the thought of honoring and remembering all those men and women in a significant and enduring way came into the public consciousness. You see, Matthews, in its 142-year history, had never had a Veterans Memorial. And as impossible as it may seem, there were those in this town that wanted to keep it that way. To those people, of the words veteran and the word park were not to be uttered in the same breath. Fortunately for this town and its veterans and for the nation, voices such as these are in the minority, and that's evident by the hundreds of you that are in the park today and the thousands of you that could not make it but wanted to give tribute and honor to those who have fought and have given their lives for us. There is no greater love than this, and that is to lay down one's life for another. And this is what makes the sacrifice of life by the men and women of our armed forces so impactful, so humbling, and so important. And no greater love can we have for them but to always remember their sacrifices and to honor their memories by raising memorials to them and to their families, who will always grieve their loss. There is one man among us today who knew this, who believed it, who fought for it. And it's my honor and privilege to introduce that man as our guest speaker. And would you please stand with me and give a warm welcome to the first mayor in the 142-year history of Matthews to preside over the establishment of a Matthews Veterans Memorial Park, our mayor, John Higdon.
Thank you. Please be seated. That's a little over the top. Want to welcome everyone, the respected elected officials that are here, my friends, I have a lot of family here, and especially the veterans, and all of you that took time out of your relaxing weekend to come here on this important occasion. I want to start my talk today on this beautiful Memorial Day with a consideration of perspective and how we see things differently as we grow older. The great Swedish film star Ingrid Bergman once famously said, "Getting old is like climbing a mountain. You get a little out of breath, but the view is so much better." I think that's very true. When I get up in the morning and I look at my face in the mirror when I'm shaving, I sometimes am a little surprised by the gray-haired man looking back at me. And I say, "Hey, weren't you just in high school not too long ago?" Now, Commissioner Ken McCool can say that because he was in high school a few years ago. But for me, it's a little bit of a stretch. But I'm always thankful for another day and the opportunity to learn something new. I think this is one of the great gifts God has given each of us, the ability to continue to learn and to transform ourselves into something better than we were yesterday. I grew up in a town called Strongsville, Ohio, which is very similar to Matthews in many ways. Strongsville is a suburb of Cleveland, much as Matthews is a suburb of Charlotte. And I was born in 1963, so when I look back on those days, I realize that basically the entirety of my childhood was spent with a war being waged in Southeast Asia. My very earliest memories include hearing Walter Cronkite's deep, resonant voice and the CBS Evening News, which we watched every day. He would sign off by saying, "And that's the way it is," and he would tell the date. And during those newscasts, Mr. Cronkite would often update us with the number of Americans killed in the latest battles. And many of our neighbors would be watching those TV sets to see if they could see their sons, praying they didn't see their son being loaded onto a helicopter or injured. Mr. Cronkite's newscast would be accompanied with graphic film footage from the battlefield. And sometimes my mother would ask my younger brother and I to leave the room. It was just too much for us to see. At this time of year, there's an oft-repeated phrase, "All gave some, but some gave all." And I'd like to take a moment now to have a moment of silence to remember all those that gave the ultimate sacrifice in Vietnam and all American conflicts. Thank you. In many ways, during those times, the American psyche was totally consumed by Vietnam, and we needed an escape. And one escape for me and my friends was sports. My brother and I and neighborhood kids enjoyed playing every possible sport imaginable. Sandlot baseball, basketball, competitive tree climbing. Yeah, that's a thing. But our favorite sport of all was football. And every now and again, my father, who was here today, John Higdon, a Army and Army Reserve veteran, is here with my mom today. Every now and again, Dad would take us to the old Cleveland Municipal Stadium to see our beloved Browns, and then as now, they didn't win very often. But it was there that I could see my favorite player, Leroy Kelly, number 44. I don't know if any remember Leroy Kelly, but he was the featured back with the Browns after Jim Brown retired. And the freezing cold temperatures and continual wind at the Lakefront Stadium didn't concern me as I focused on Leroy. He would crash down through intended tacklers, and then when 5 or 6 would finally take him down, the sounds of pads popping and men groaning could be heard all the way up to where me and Dad sat in the stands. And then Leroy would stand up, and he'd look up in the crowd, and he'd smile and shake his head, as if to say, these guys can't hurt me. Other times he would evade all tacklers during a long run or punt return, and I would watch him in awe. "Look at him," I would say to my dad, "look at him," and Dad would smile. At school, we would gather on the playground to talk about the latest goings-on, and inevitably sports would come up. And I remember saying, "Leroy Kelly is the best. He is my hero." Some would agree with my assessment, while others would point out other heroes, people like Pete Rose or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Roger Staubach or Bobby Orr or Mark Spitz. And I remember once a girl joined our talk, and she said, "You boys are so silly to idolize sports heroes because my hero is Cher." Years later, I remember attending one of my son's track meets at Butler High School, and I heard the name Usain Bolt brought up by some of the athletes. Usain Bolt was destined to be a sprinter with a name like that. "He's my hero," said one boy. "You see, he won a 100-meter race once in near world record time, despite the fact that he ran the last few yards backwards so as to taunt those that dared to think that they could beat him. He's my hero, they said. But then again, with age comes perspective. So today on Memorial Day, I want to remember a true hero. It's a gentleman named Roy Benavidez. He was born in Texas to a very poor family. His father was Mexican. His mother was a Yaqui Indian. And he was bullied mercilessly at school because of his mixed heritage and because he was so poor. When he was very young, his mother died from tuberculosis, and his father died soon after from the same disease. Roy was forced to drop out of school to support his siblings after his parents passed. And he decided that he wanted to better himself, and so he joined the Army. In 1965, Roy Benavidez was sent to South Vietnam as an advisor to an Army of the Republic of Vietnam infantry regiment. And he stepped on a landmine during a patrol and was evacuated back to the United States. Almost as soon as he got there, he was devastated. And his doctors at Fort Sam Houston concluded he would never walk again and began preparing his medical discharge papers. But Benavidez said, "Not so fast," to his doctors. He says, "I'm going to recover." And he began an unsanctioned nightly training ritual in an attempt to redevelop his ability to walk. And he was in a large room with other soldiers, many of who were paralyzed or had limbs missing, and they would encourage him. As he got out of bed every night, unable to use his legs, he crawled with his elbows and his chin to a nearby wall where he would try to wiggle his toes and get his legs to work again. He first moved his feet, and eventually, after several months of excruciating practice, by his own admission that often brought him to tears, he was able to push himself up on the wall with his ankles and legs, and he stood to the thunderous ovation of those that were in the room with him. And after over a year of hospitalization, Benavidez, despite all those that said he would never walk again, walked out of the hospital arm in arm with his wife, and he told his superiors, "I want to go back to Vietnam with my brothers." So despite continuing pain from his wounds, he returned to South Vietnam in January 1968. At this point, he had become a part of the Special Forces. He was a Green Beret. So Master Sergeant Benavidez would now gain worldwide acclaim for his actions in a firefight that has been nicknamed 6 Hours in Hell. It was April of 1968, and an American unit was on patrol west of Loc Ninh near the South Vietnamese-Cambodian border when they ran into a 1,000-man North Vietnamese Army infantry battalion. Benavidez heard that some of his comrades were pinned down, and he volunteered, without any thought, jumping onto a helicopter to reinforce the unit. He was dropped right into a fight well underway. In his haste, he had left his M16 behind. It was armed only with a Bowie knife. He ran into the pinned down unit after being dropped off, and on the way he was wounded in his right leg, face, and head. He took control of the soldiers. He dragged half of the wounded to a medevac helicopter, and then he ran alongside the helicopter as it moved to pick up more wounded. As Benavidez went back to secure classified documents from the body of a dead soldier, the helicopter's pilot was mortally wounded, and the aircraft crashed. Benavidez continued to gather the documents from the dead soldier, went back to the helicopter, and aided the wounded out of the overturned aircraft. He guided the men to a defensive position and called in airstrikes. When another helicopter came, he alone ferried all the wounded, meanwhile killing one North Vietnamese Army soldier in hand-to-hand combat with his knife and killing 2 others that were charging the helicopter from behind. It was only after making sure all the wounded were on board, Benavidez collapsed. But one of the soldiers was able to pull him onto the helicopter. A doctor on board thought surely he was dead and began to put Benavidez in a body bag. And as he began zipping it up around his head, Benavidez did the only thing he had the strength left to do. He spat in the doctor's face and said, "I'm still alive." Benavidez was then medevaced to a mobile Army surgical hospital, and it was discovered he had sustained 7 major gunshot wounds. He had shrapnel in his head, scalp, shoulder, buttocks, feet, and legs, had both of his arms slashed by bayonets, and one of his lungs was collapsed. His superiors awarded him the Distinguished Service Cross because they didn't think he would live to survive. And that was the end of that. The war ended. Benavidez went home and recovered. And one of his colleagues, one of the men he helped save, was reading about the 6 hours in hell battle. And he wondered whatever happened to Benavidez, not realizing that he had lived. And he wondered why he hadn't been awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his actions. So he contacted his congressman and started the effort to make that happen. President Ronald Reagan presented the Congressional Medal of Honor to Benavidez for his actions in 6 hours of hell. And during the presentation, he said, "My God, if this was a movie script, nobody would believe what you did." If you go to the Congressional Medal of Honor website, it mentions some of the phrases that are used in the citations given to those men and women. Gallantry in action, intrepidity, above and beyond the call of duty, risk of life, selflessness, exemplary action, unwavering devotion, conspicuous gallantry, extraordinary heroism. The words enshrined with the Medal of Honor citations capture the best of what it means to be a human. Roy Benavidez was a hero. Singers, rappers, actors, athletes, they all have interesting and noteworthy talents, but they're not heroic. So let's remember this Memorial Day to reserve the word hero to those that truly deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The remaining part of the ceremony will be focused in the rear part of the park, so if you'd like to take a moment to either stand and turn or to move your seat, we'll wait just for a moment or two. Please post the wreath.
Those who gave their life in service to our country, on the wall you're watching, Joshua C. Blaney, Charles E. Byram, Paul S. Cannell, Norman S. Connell, Grover B. Crowell, Troy R. Earp, Charlie Evan, Arthur A. Flo, Walter O. Flo, Jimmy Forbes, Edward Griffin, Mark Griffin, Samuel Hennigan, Grady B. Hooks, William Hooper, Julius N. Ingram, Carl F. Jordan, Freeman Jordan, George M. Knowles, Jr., Clyce R. Orr. Joseph L. Orr. Raymond Samuel Orr. Randolph Paris. George Phillips. Harry B. Phillips. Walter H. Price. R. B. Rowell. Gerald A. Stansel. John F. Terry. Everett L. Williams. Members of Post 235 that have joined the Post Everlasting this year: Thomas Cannon, William Keels, Robert L. Williams, and Russ Wise.
Eternal Father, strong to save, whose arm hath bound the restless wave, who bids the mighty ocean deep its own appointed limits keep. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee, for those in peril on the sea.
Gracious God, we thank you for having brought us together to pay tribute to those who lost their lives defending our nation. May their souls live on in your gracious presence, and may they experience the full measure of your love and mercy. We also ask that you guide us and make us worthy of the sacrifices from which we have benefited. We pray we never forget how very fortunate we are as a nation, as a people, and as your children. And now may the courage of the early morning's dawning, and the strength of the eternal hills, and the peace of the evening's ending, and God's joy which the world cannot give, and which the world cannot take away, be with you today and tomorrow, and in all life's tomorrows. Amen.
That concludes today's ceremony. Thank you all so very much for attending.